Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today we are going to talk about the side effects of becoming more spiritually connected. I've noticed through my years of offering psychic readings and connecting more and more with spirit and spirits and just working with the divine more, doing my own healing, transformation, and spiritual awakening, I've become more sensitive to some things and I've made some natural changes over time without consciously thinking about it as a result. And I kind of view those as like side effects of having a spiritual awakening that will gradually occur over time. So watch this video and comment down below if you notice any of these things happening for you. The first side effect is naturally distancing yourself more from things like weed, alcohol, and mind-altering substances. And this is something completely natural. It's not like a conscious thing where you're like, okay, I want to cut back on this. I mean, if you are having that, that's really great. Of course, go with that. But I noticed that over the years, as I become more spiritually connected, I completely lost any desire to smoke weed whatsoever. I just don't do it anymore. And I do not drink regularly at all anymore. I still occasionally indulge in that, but it's always very mindful and I'm very aware of where my energy is at, what the intention is of consuming that drink, and just making sure that everything is energetically right. I no longer have the desire to keep drinking or smoking or even consuming mind-altering substances. I know a lot of people in the spiritual community tend to enjoy things like mushrooms or different substance that can kind of evoke these spiritual experiences, but even that I don't have a desire to do anymore. And I notice that over time, as you become more and more spiritually connected in your sober reality, you kind of experience a natural drop-off of wanting to do those things. The second symptom of a spiritual awakening is becoming more sensitive to things such as gluten, different irritants that might be in like cleaning products, different smells, or like dietary things, becoming more sensitive to lactose and the things that aren't natural to humans, the human anatomy, and the things that our ancestors have eaten. Now, most of the world is lactose intolerant. This is a fact, okay? And the number of people who are having more gluten sensitivities or celiac disease, it's growing, it's on the rise. And I feel like this has a lot to do with us becoming more spiritually connected as a society. Also, I feel like it has a lot to do with how agriculture has changed in the last couple of years, especially in places like America, where the food market is not really regulated. I have noticed that as I become more psychically sensitive, my body itself is also becoming more sensitive. And I am starting to notice how different I feel when I eat meals that are really heavy in gluten or sugar or dairy products, you know, and how it just kind of slows me down and makes me feel sluggish. Now, I don't know if you become more sensitive as a result of having a spiritual awakening or if that spiritual awakening just makes you more and more conscious of the things that have been making you feel bad your whole life. I don't know if it's one thing or the other or maybe a little bit of both, but I have definitely noticed that as I become more spiritually connected and in tune with spirit and the universe and my healing journey, that it just feels like I am more sensitive to, you know, sugar, all this nasty stuff, different smells and irritants. I'm more guided to shop in the produce section, and like someone put it to me the other day, when you go to the grocery store, the healthiest way to do it is not go on the aisles at all. You know, only shop in like the types of foods that would be on the walls, like the produce, maybe the dairy, maybe the meat if you're into that. I don't eat meat personally and I avoid dairy. All of that stuff in the aisles are, you know, if they're able to be stored without refrigeration, it means that there's something in it that preserves that food. So really high salts and preservatives and dyes, things like that. You'll start to become more and more sensitive to those things. Now, this might be slightly different. I feel if you live in a country that really cares cares about its citizens and pays attention to what goes into foods. You might not have the same exact experience, but I feel like in general, you're going to start feeling more and more guided towards that fresh, natural produce, you know, grapes and berries and freshly made breads that don't have, you know, modified wheat products, and like just eating more of that natural, healthy stuff. The third symptom is feeling more and more worse feeling after you consume media like horror movies, really violent films and TV shows, even reality TV, watching the news. That one's a big one for me. I always tell people, you know, it's just not good to watch the news. It really just does so much negative stuff for your energy. And it's not that you shouldn't be informed. It is everyone's duty to be informed of what's going on in the world. But there is a certain intention that the media puts over their content when they're creating news. You know, they're using marketing skills to keep people watching, using fear to keep people watching, negativity to keep people watching. They are consciously using the human psychology to keep people feeling like they need to go back and back and back. Whereas when you read the news, for example, in a newspaper, on online articles, you have a better discernment of whether or not that news is biased, okay? So when you're reading the news, you can see very clearly if it's biased or not. You know, you can read the facts and point out the facts versus what are opinions. And whereas if you're having this media showing you all these violent images and people are using certain inflections in their voice to create that sense of fear and danger in the world. I have noticed people who watch the news every single day, they have this mindset of this world is a dangerous place. You know, you shouldn't travel, you shouldn't go anywhere. And so over time, as you become more spiritually connected and have your spiritual awakening, you will find yourself more sensitive to things like the news, horror movies, all of this more negative media. And sometimes I do like to indulge in the occasional horror film, but I notice that as I become more sensitive, like I have to watch something else happier after that, like a nice Disney princess movie or something. I don't know. Like I have to counterbalance so that I don't stay stuck in that energy, in that energetic state. The fourth side effect of having a continuous spiritual awakening is becoming more and more sensitive in some big crowds. And I use the word some because it really depends. Going places like really busy shopping malls, for example, or cities, anywhere that's just, I would say, like the opposite of cozy, comfy energy, feels really draining, really tiring for you more and more and more over time. And the reason for that is because you are increasing your psychic abilities and becoming more spiritually connected. You're picking up so strongly everyone's energy all around you. And so you just become really, really tired in these huge crowds. Now, I say some huge crowds because sometimes there are crowds that are all gathered for a really uplifting intention. An example of this is concerts. I feel alive and happy and energetic in big crowds when I'm going to see a show, a concert, something like that, where we're all there with the motivation of happiness and listening to music and relaxing. And a lot of people can relate to this. Going to festivals, going to concerts, you have an uplifted, energetic feeling, as opposed to going places where all of the intentions are scattered, like shopping malls and other crowds like that can be really draining. But going to a concert surrounded by people who are all enjoying the music and dancing and there for the same reasons, it kind of becomes this own entity in and of itself, and those environments are super duper powerful. So I want to say in some crowds you will become more and more tired. The fifth side effect of having a spiritual awakening is becoming less and less tolerant of other people's bad decisions. Now, this one I have to explain a little bit. It's not necessarily that you're more closed-minded, judgmental, not accepting of people who have other life choices and paths as you. This is more so, for example, back in the day, say that you had a friend and they were cheating on their wife. Maybe back then you thought to yourself, okay, well, that's not really nice. I don't support that, but you know, whatever, their decision, whatever. I'm not gonna get involved in it. They can ruin their own life. You know, I'll be over here. Over time, I noticed that I can no longer be people's friends and offer them friendship and kinship and, you know, pour my energies into them if they themselves are making life choices that I don't necessarily morally agree with. And this is a really fine line because I feel like some people over time can become very close-minded and they only surround themselves with people who make all the same life choices as them. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. But as a psychic, as somebody spiritually connected, it becomes more and more super draining on you and your emotional, spiritual reserves to be around people who are constantly making these bad decisions, you know, engaging in addictions, in really immoral behaviors, in just very destructive qualities. You know, I feel like it's hard to turn off that empathy and put yourself it's almost like when you're surrounded by people, you become a part of their energy in a sense. And as I become more sensitive to energies over time, more spiritually connected, it's like harder and harder to be around those people as a friend, as somebody who is emotionally invested in that. So I've noticed over time, I've had stronger and stronger boundaries around that, you know? And that's a good piece of advice if you're somebody who is an empath. You know, you really do have to have strong boundaries and not pour your time and energy into people who make choices like that. So those are some of the symptoms and side effects of having a spiritual awakening that you might notice over the years, becoming more sensitive. You just become more sensitive to everything going on around you in general. And that's a good thing. And I think it's important to keep that in mind because I think for a while I was kind of like mad that my body keeps getting more sensitive to different foods, for example, even different fabrics. You know, I used to buy clothes from these fast fashion companies that are putting really bad products. Like they're putting bad materials into their clothing and my skin is becoming more sensitive as well. Like everything's becoming more sensitive. And I viewed that as a bad thing, but then I kind of am also grateful for it because it's like, thank you for rejecting these ingredients, these products that are not natural, that are not good for me or the environment or the collective. You know, the more I tune my energies to the highest good and the highest good of myself, the highest good of the planet, the more my body and my mind and my soul and my spirit rejects those things that are not for the highest good of people and the planet, etc. And sometimes you don't even think about it, like materials in your clothing. You don't think like this is not for the highest good. And then your body starts rejecting it. You start having rashes or skin problems or having modified foods and wheats that have like way more gluten in it. You know, you don't think that, okay, that might not be the best for humans or the highest good or even like plants and nature and the ecosystem, and then your body starts rejecting it. So it can be a little frustrating becoming more and more sensitive over time, but just keep in mind that this is your body and soul's way of keeping you connected. So thank you guys for joining me for this discussion. I would love to hear in the comments if you noticed any of these symptoms and side effects in yourself, and also any more. I'm sure I could think of a lot more if I really put my mind to it, but you guys let me know down below, what have you noticed over time you've become more and more sensitive to? Leave it in the comments. And of course, subscribe if you have not already. Thank you guys. Bye.